2, 1, and here we go. I am LeRod Smalls, and yes, this is Rise of the Black Warrior podcast. So, we're going to dive into today's conversation, which I can guarantee you is going to be a spicy one. But before I do that, I just want to welcome all of our new guests to this conversation. And for those that have been following me for a while, I want to thank you for continually liking and sharing this content with people that may need this and want to share it with those who want to expand their mind and have a conversation about topics that sometimes will be gripping, are not the ones that are comfortable, that will create collisions. But out of every collision comes something, and we hope that something powerful can come out of this conversation today. So before me, I have an article that I printed out from the New York Times. It was dated March 7th by an opinion columnist named David Brooks. Now, as I've understand, doing a little research on this gentleman, he comes from Canada. He was born in Canada, but migrated to the U.S., and he's a columnist on, political views, on social views, on economic views. And this particular conversation is titled "The Case for Reparations." All right. So we're talking about reparations due to descendants of African slaves, and why should they get reparations, or if it's possible, or what should come out of that particular conversation. Now, he begins basically talking about his first initial reaction to it was based on another article that he actually felt contrary to the idea of the government paying out reparations. Well, what is that concept about? All right, so just like the Jews who were accosted, who were brutalized in the Holocaust of Germany paid reparations to the descendants, to the families of those who were killed and lost businesses and whatever else, right? To the extent of that, I truly don't know 100% of it, but I know there was a fortune of money paid out to those who applied and basically, got money from the government of Germany because of it. And here in America, in the smallest possible degree, those of Native American descent received some small, insignificant, in the grand scheme of things, amount of land or benefit because of what happened to them. Now, the African Americans that were, held in bondage and then ultimately were freed and put into society here, right, received absolutely nothing. Now, originally when Lincoln intended to create this separation and the freedom of the slave, in that, an inclusion in that, there was the 40 acres and a mule, where every slave that was freed was supposed to have 40 acres and a mule and an opportunity to now be a part of society and have something to start with. Because to start with nothing leaves you in a space where you would basically end up going back into some type of indebtedness, or you cannot fend for yourself. But being that Lincoln was killed, immediately the next incoming president killed that entire thing, and there was no 40 acres and a mule. Actually, let me give you some more history. The slave owners that lost slaves filed and some of them, actually probably a lot of them, got $300 per slave from the government because they basically lost out, because they lost property. They got $300 from the government for freeing their slaves. Now, reparations and this concept. So let's get into this. How would we even do that? All right. So from somebody who is a descendant of, I'm most likely sure of some type of slave. My father was from South Carolina, and we're talking about the deep South. So I'm emotionally invested and connected to the conversation, but I still want to be aware of this entire conversation and say to myself, well, how would we go about it? Who's entitled to it? And bringing up this conversation, even in today's time, would that incite something that would actually take us backward as a community, as a society, as a group of people that are looking to become more powerful? Would we become less powerful in losing our focus and our drive on trying to get something old as opposed to building something new and creating something that's more powerful? I am not sure. I don't know the answer to that, but it is a question and a conversation that I think is worth having, right? And Mr. David Brooks eloquently really lays it out in this article and his travels. I definitely recommend everybody check it out. It's in the New York Times. It's an amazing article, but the most important thing that that stood out to me was nothing that he wrote. It was the fact that at the end of his letter, the New York Times received, at the time of this recording, over 1,800 comments about this particular op-ed, right? That is quite significant. And I've scrolled through the New York Times, their op-eds and on some of those particular articles, and not even half, on average, get that many comments at all. But this one was very, very hot. There was a lot of energy around it. A lot of people had a lot of different views on should there be reparations. Now, I want to know what your view is, right? I would love to hear from you about what do you think about reparations, about paying someone some type of acknowledgement, something. Because the truth is that if you start with nothing, and everyone else starts with something, you will always be behind. Those who were freed didn't have the same start as a child who was raised into a family that had resources, education, understanding, and even the ability to operate in the environment. So I lay this question out to you guys, because this is the type of conversation that you should have with your children, with the friends, with the family. What would you do if you had the magic button, if you could push the button in government and say, hey, listen, we should pay reparations to those descendants that were brutalized, that were enslaved? How would you go about it? And what would the impact be today if we were to open that Pandora's box, if you will? Because there are going to be those that are significantly well off. Should they receive it? The Oprahs and the wealthiest of us, right? The Jay-Z's, those who are multimillionaires and probably on their way to $1 billion. Are they entitled to it as well? Should they receive it? There's so many different things in this conversation that need to be worked out. So I'm interested in hearing. Hey guys, my name is LeRod Smalls. I am interested in having a conversation about power and how we can be more powerful and create more power in our communities, for our families, and for our generations to come. All right, definitely check out this podcast. Share it with people that you know. You can listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, or you can watch us live here in the studio as we share ideas, messages from mentors about things that matter. Now remember, you are only one decision away from changing your whole world. God bless everybody. Peace.